of competition, but you can make sure to leave your mark on the competition with the newest additions to the championship line. Proceeds of the championship Ash and Ward skins will not only contribute 25% of the purchase to the world's prize pool, but an additional 25% of the proceeds will be donated to charity. And of course, you can unlock the championship Ash Chroma through the world's missions, which will be available through all of Worlds. But, however, as we look forward, gentlemen, I want a moment to think a little bit about Groups A and B. Of course, I think it's an easy bet for a lot of people to just look at those seed ones, but what is the upset potential here when we look at some of these teams? I
mean, each group is a little different. I think sometimes you're looking at, might there be an upset at the first seed position, and sometimes you're looking at who might be the other team to get out. Group A is an example where, like, WE is so dominant and it has two great teams behind it. It's going to be a really tough battle to see who can actually get that second seed, as opposed to some other groups where there might be a big upset at the 1 seed.
Yeah, if there's an upset in the 1 seed, it completely changes what the outlook of the group is. But looking at that number 2 seed, because 2 teams make it out of each group, remember? So I'm looking at those other teams in those groups to see if there's a really big standout that's kind of overlooked here. My mind kind of goes to, you know, Gambit, what's going to happen there, what's going to happen with Fenerbahce or 1907, you know? Different year.
Gotta get the date right. Gotta get the date right, man.
But like, what happens with these teams? Because when you make it out of these play-in groups, you end up in a best of 5. That's single elimination. There is no saving you there. And if one team that's supposed to be a number 1 ends up number 2, you could be looking at something like a Fnatic versus Cloud9 to get into the group stage.
Yeah, and the interesting difference to me is that we start with best of 1, right? And the strength that you have in best of 1 doesn't always transition to best of 5. So the team that might be best in a 5 could not find a way if they can't find that same strength in the best of 1.
I think the big thing, too, is that there's always the world's meta to kind of figure out, and it's one of those situations here where some teams are coming in with crazier picks. You were talking a little bit about, you know, some of these teams, and they're playing things like the Anivia mid, they're playing things like the Ziggs mid, and there's these different play styles, and if you're a team like Fnatic and C9, they usually play more standard, so you can have this big clash of styles in that best of 1 as well.
Yeah, this is going to be a lot about playing your style. You prepare for your opponents, of course, but you have to play your style, and you can't let the other team really dictate it. You can't drop a single game.
Yeah, and I'm excited to see what that style looks like. Without further ado, let's kick off Worlds 2017 by sending it over to the casters. Take it away, Captain Flowers.
Hello, everyone. I'm Clayton Captain Flowers Reigns, joined by my brother from an EU mother, Andrew Vedius Day. Are you ready, Vedi?
I am very ready, and I'm excited to be joined by the hype man himself, Captain Flowers. Now, I know you're a big hype man, but to make sure that you stay hydrated throughout some of the games today, I have brought with me my very own European watering can so that you will always be watered for the early games of Worlds today.
Well, we'll water the flowers. We have equipped Baron with his championship armor for our first game of Worlds. Team WE versus Lyon Gaming. Taking on to the Rift for the blue side in game number 1. It's Team WE with 957 in the top lane, Condi in the jungle, GA mid, Mystic bot, Ben supporting, and Coach Home.
And facing them on the red side, it is Lyon Gaming. In the top lane is Droll, their jungler Oddie, mid lane is Saya, their AD carry White Lotus, on support is Genthix, and their coach Yeti.
Now, Lyon Gaming have a tall task at the start of Worlds 2017 here, not only playing the opening game, but facing off against hometown heroes in Team WE.
Yeah, a lot of pressure is going to be on Team WE because China just expects this team to dominate their group. A lot of analysts have predicted it, but the home crowd is looking at WE and saying, this should be an easy group for you. WE is expected to be one of the best teams even coming out from China as a representative, and one of the players leading that is their AD carry, Mystic. You heard them talking about him on the analyst desk, and it's no surprise when you see him playing game. This guy is so consistent. He is so impressive to watch in those teams specifically, and I think he's going to be a big contributing factor in the success of this team.
And if the most dominant team from the Latin America North League want to pull off this upset against Team WE and against Mystic, it's going to be through their jungler, Audi.
It certainly will be, because this guy is the catalyst for success on the side of Lyon Gaming. He is what allows players like Saya and White Lotus to really flourish within their region. But with the recent meta changes, he has been struggling a little bit domestically, because in the past, he used to be known for things like the Lee Sin, the Elise, these early game skirmishes, the snowballers, to get these carries ahead in the early game, where they would run away with things, but now he can't do that. He's on things like the Gragas and the Sejuani, which are a little bit slower to play, but he still sticks to that early game style, which can often hurt him. So going up against a jungler like Condi, who's extremely consistent, has all these versatile play styles, I think it's going to be a lot on him to step up to match that level of competition.
And for the whole team, the pressure is on going up against the home team. Like we mentioned earlier, WE, a hometown favorite for the LPL region. They really like to cheer for these guys. This is a team that a lot of people have a lot of faith in. A lot of people are seeing this as one of the stronger teams in the entire tournament, not just the play-in stage. So Gaming will definitely make a statement if they come out strong against these guys.
They certainly will be. And remember, Captain Flowers, the thing is, back in MSI, this team went 7-3. And one of the losses was to the Gigabyte Marines. A little bit unexpected. Nobody saw it coming. And for a team like Lyon Gaming, they have the potential, especially when you look at the individual talent on players like Seiya and White Lotus, and even Giral if he's put in the situation to carry. But WE is a difficult team to snowball against. They just seem so well-rounded. They seem to have very few weaknesses that you can really try and funnel in on unless they fall behind in the early game. So it's things to explore during the Champion Select because there are going to be a lot of changes as well coming into the draft on this in Worlds.
Absolutely. Just a little bit of housekeeping for you guys. We are playing on patch 7.18. Ornn is disabled, so you will not be seeing any of him throughout this. However, there were a number of changes on patch 7.18, of which I now want to ask you, which do you think are going to cause the biggest commotion? What do you think we're going to be seeing specifically from patch 7.18 in these opening games of Worlds?
So I think one of the big things that has changed about the most recent patch is the changes to Cinderhulk, where now you don't get as much HP because the order in which Cinderhulk was interacting with it has changed. So it's slightly weaker now, it's slightly less tanky, but also Cinderhulk, the item itself, was nerfed, which means that tanks, especially in the early game, are a little bit weaker. And when you look at champions as well, like Lee Sin, who've had a few small buffs to their early game skirmishing, there could be windows, there could be room for people to experiment. It's very much depending on what teams have been practicing. I've heard whispers of maybe because of the reverts to Fiora and her movement speed being changes that she could now move up to the top lane as well, especially given the recent nerfs to Cinderhulk tanks in the current meta as well. So I think that with a lot of small changes could maybe knock down priority to a couple of big tanks, but also raise the priority of a couple of carries that we have seen come out here and there.
I mean, League of Legends is a game of very small number changes being just absolutely central towards how the game is balanced, towards what is the best and what is not the best. I mean, we all make jokes about things like 5 AD, but at the end of the day, those sorts of small changes can have very large impacts on what you see in the meta overall. Small changes to Cinderhulk might see things shaken up a little bit in the jungle there. Also want to comment on the fact that Knight's Vow did get its price reduced, but also its health value reduced. And considering a lot of the junglers that we are seeing in the meta these days love going Cinderhulk into Knight's Vow, just being that supportive style meatball that stands in front of the AD carry and keeps him protected or engages on the enemy team, we might see a little less prevalence of that. We might get to see a little bit of a different approach in the jungle. And if I'm watching some big playmakers, especially in these environments like best of ones, where sometimes you see crazy strategies come out to pull a win out of nowhere, I want to see that. I want to see that.
I want to see it as well, Captain Flabs. You got to remember, you talk about these small changes. We saw in this or that, the +3 armor, -3 armor for both Gragas and Rengar. Like, there's the possibility for these new champions to come out, especially with Gragas. His hitboxes have slightly changed as well on the E, so it's a little bit harder to land right now. We'll see how teams have adapted to that kind of playstyle. Tristana, very small nerf to her scaling as well. Cassio, a very prevalent mid lane champion that has really been popular throughout the world, has also taken a very small hit, and her early skirmishing may very well be a little weaker. And because of all these small changes here and there, it just makes you wonder, what new stuff have people been practicing?
Oh, yeah.
Have they come out with some new creative answers to some of these strong champions? Like, we've seen Jax come out here and there. We've heard Jace, or we know Jace is very popular over in the LCK, but in other regions, has he now become even more prevalent? Not a very big pick that was very strong for a long time, but also it makes you wonder, how important are these ardent sensor supports going to be? Is that going to be the priority? Do you want to insta-lock that Janna, or is something like the Alistair, do you want that tanky front line? Maybe you put the tank in the bottom lane and then you bring out junglers like the Ivan, who also had a very small buff. And as you rightly said, like, it's just so many small increments, like all over the shop. It's all about how different teams interpret that patch and how their read on the meta and what they see as strong and weak.
And, you know, we talk about these champions that we've seen some of so far, and these picks that we commonly see as evergreens that almost never fade out of the meta unless they've just been completely nerfed. At the same time, I'm really hoping at least some point during this tournament, we get to see something that feels almost completely out of left field. Like, wait, where did that come from? I didn't even think of this as a pick in this situation. Those are one of my all-time favorite things to see, because then you go into the game and you get to leave that game with a very distinct feeling. You either have that feeling of, so this is why no one ever plays this because it's terrible, or you get to think, could this be the beginning of a new way of the meta being shaped?
And it's great that you mentioned that as well, because one of the picks that immediately comes to mind is Jungle Ezreal. And the reason why I mention that is because the players on your screen right now, Team WE, they brought out the jungle Ezreal during the LPL playoffs, and it wasn't as successful as they would have liked, but the fact is they were willing to bring that pick out. They were willing to try it, and it just goes to show the level of depth that players like Condi does have. He is the type of jungler that can play that early game style where he can snowball his mid laners to give them that massive lead. Like, think back to SKT where they ran the Lucian mid, and everyone's like, oh, they brought it out. They brought out that innovative pick. They just camp mid, they set up GA for success, and they smash SKT in a very convincing fashion. And Condi, he can also play those scaling junglers, and that's why a lot of our focus as well was going to be on the answer on the other side. How can Oddie stack up against him? Will he be able to find a pick in the current meta that really complements his style and set up his hyper carries in the form of Seiya and White Lotus to be able to succeed and compete with this LPL powerhouse?
And, you know, talking about a team that has beaten SKT convincingly, that is not just something that you can brush off and say, oh, yeah, I guess we did this one thing this one time. That's a hell of a statement to be able to make. And if you're going up against a team like this, if you're the representative from the LLN, if you're Lyon Gaming going up against Team WE, this is not one of the kinds of teams that you're normally used to going up against in your international competition experiences, simply because with the play-in stage being introduced to Worlds 2017, you're getting to see more teams compete at Worlds than would previously be competing. You're getting to see different types of matchups, considering the third seeds from these larger regions are playing in the play-ins as well, like you're seeing with Cloud9, like you're seeing with Fnatic, like you're seeing with WE. So some of these teams that are normally going to compete in what previously would have been wildcard qualifiers and things like that, they're now going up against some bigger fish. It'll be an interesting experience. It'll be one where they really have to step up their level of play, especially for a team like Lyon Gaming, which has been so historically dominant in their own region.
But it's also just one of those things where you get to prove yourself, right?
Exactly.
Because when you're Lyon Gaming and you're 9-time champion domestically, that's like Hall of Fame worthy, right? Like, no matter what you say about the region, to win 9 times in a row is a very impressive feat. And when you look at players like Seiya specifically, he's been on that team for all 9 championships, right? That is such an incredible achievement to make, but it doesn't mean as much when you come to these international tournaments and you're going up against these Chinese representatives and you think like, I want to be able to prove that it's not just domestically. I can compete on this international stage. I can challenge GA, the dude that put Faker a step back, right? Like, being able to just get these small achievements and just putting the pressure on these considered major regions is definitely a big achievement, and something that all these teams are working really hard to do. And when you look especially at Group A, a lot of people consider that the group of death, right? Gambit, Lyon, WE. Like, it's really exciting, and you never really know what you're going to get in this best-of-1 format with a brand new patch as well.
Plus, like we heard on the desk, not only is it a best-of-1 format, it's a best-of-1 format with 4 games that you get to play.
4.
If something goes wrong in one of those games, maybe if you're having a fantastic game and then you end up having a minor slip-up that causes you to throw the game, that might throw your entire chance at moving on in Worlds. Every single one of these games, these teams have to be taking seriously. They have to have it at the forefront of their mind, be seriously focused on what they're doing. This isn't a time where you can just get complacent and say, okay, we're worried about the next step. We're worried about the next game. Each one of these games, these teams are going to have to be well prepared for.
And it's all about how well you are prepared for the meta specifically as well, because if you don't read quick enough that there's this really strong champion that everyone can take advantage of, then you can very quickly fall behind. But we don't have to talk about it anymore because we're going to get to see some of these really strong champions that some of these teams have been preparing.
And I'm really looking forward to seeing how the drafts go between some of these squads, especially from different regions, because there's a lot of times, and we saw it, I don't know, there was this little thing that happened, I don't know if you remember, it was called Rift Rivals.
Right.
And in Rift Rivals,
what happened?
We got to see some examples of things happening, like teams from regions that don't normally play a certain champion, like LeBlanc out there, and they wouldn't ban it, and then it would go through, and then representatives from other regions were able to play that champion incredibly well. You wonder, how will they adapt? How will they deal with these picks that they aren't normally used to dealing with? But now we are into Champion Select for the first time here of Worlds 2017 during the play-in stage, and let's see exactly how WE and Lyon decide to approach each other, with Rek'Sai and Alistar banned away first by WE, Lyon deciding to take Kalista off the table immediately.
Now, it's quite fascinating that WE would be the ones to ban Alistar, because during their playoffs and during the Gauntlet, they put a lot of emphasis on getting Ben this playmaking support in the form of Alistar. It was a very big focal point for them, which they're now taking off the board. So it now makes you wonder, do champions like Tristana, Xayah, Rakan all raised in priority. And even after the small nerfs Rakan did have, I still feel like the duo combo of Xayah and Rakan is still a very prevalent bottom lane.
Well, Tristana, you mentioned, also going to be banned away now by WE. Lyon deciding to remove Sejuani and Jarvan from the pool of available champions, two of those big initiators. We know they like to get tanky, like to get in there and get things going for their teams, but they will not be doing that today. Xayah picked up by WE, first pick of the tournament.
So in terms of the meta right now, things are looking very stable, not a huge big shift. The only real surprise may be this Rek'Sai ban from the side of WE. But with the early lock-in from Xayah, you're already setting us up for a very powerful bottom lane for WE. Something like a Thresh would be lovely to complement that. And Lyon, they're already responding. They're going to play a little bit more defensively, locking themselves in an early Braum.
Braum locked in for Lyon means they're going to have that support power down there, that disengage ability. Can be manipulated and abused a little bit by certain ranged supports, but we'll have to see how that ends up playing out as they also grab themselves even more tank ability, Maokai grab.
So they're already building themselves this strong team fighting setup. The Maokai can flex to both top and jungle. And we talked a little about how Oddie, he has been struggling a little bit in the meta, but the thing about Maokai, he's not exactly the most complex champion in order to succeed on, right? He can be that early game impact, but he's always going to have that mid to late game value with the crowd control and teamfight prowess that he will offer alongside Braum.
And the response to that, they're saying, hey, you want to draft a big front line? Well, we are going to draft literally the biggest champion in League of Legends. WE going to pick up Cho'Gath for themselves. Now thinking about exactly what they want to complement that with before we get into the next part of the bans. One pick left here for the LPL representatives to go with. Thinking about this Janna for a long time, and they will lock that one in.
So, as you rightly identified, going for a little bit more of a range support. The Ardent Sensor that we have been seeing, again, a small change to Ardent Sensor. It's now flat values rather than scaling throughout levels, which means it just gives you an immediate impact, and it's not going to get even more terrifying, but it's still a strong item. Yeah,
it's still a ridiculously powerful item, Vedius. We've seen what it can do and exactly how the meta has shaped and bent around it in recent times, and we are going to see Lyon Gaming pick up Kog'Maw for themselves there in the bottom lane. Heading into the second part of the bans, they'll also take LeBlanc off the table.
Now remember, one of the big people that we talked about for Lyon was this White Lotus player. He's one of the main carries of the team, and right now he's being put on the Kog'Maw, and as we all know, Kog'Maw is someone that in the late game you can just rely on to be that big hyper carry. So with a Braum, with a Maokai, you can see Lyon starting to build a composition around White Lotus to set him up for success. Now the thing that Lyon tend to do is they'll usually pick more towards comfort rather than, say, the traditional meta that you would expect. And what I would normally say is here, Seiya would go for something a little bit more aggressive. He's about trying to dominate his own lane, and that means Oddie has a few more options where he wants to play around. But with a LeBlanc ban, perhaps Lyon have shifted up their style of focus, and maybe they're going to go all in on White Lotus.
One more ban left to go for each side, seeing exactly how they want to finish shaping this champion select. Galio banned away by Lyon, so taking off that big tanky frontliner as well as the ability to support from such a long way away, utilizing the power of the hero's engine.
I feel like Orianna is the key pick right now for Lion's strong laner, provides great utility, can be both defensive and offensive with regards to Kog'Maw, and it will give you that additional bit of damage if Kog'Maw is not off to the rolling start that you would like him to have during the early lane phase.
Well, we're into that last part of the picks here. Both the Shen and the Karma taken off the board by Team WE, so preventing some of that protect the Kog'Maw classic composition that might have been the idea there for Lyon. But now Lyon still has plenty of options left to go. You said you're potentially expecting to see something like an Orianna here, but Syndra is what Lyon decides to lock in as their mid lane.
Now, the thing that I love about Syndra is her ability to set up ganks. The QE combo, the stun, makes it so easy for a jungler to just walk in, get the follow-up CC, a level 6 Syndra hits you with an ulti, boom, that's a very quick kill. You then gain pressure in the mid lane. Yes, it's not as good at peeling for your AD carry, but we go back to what we were talking about with Seiya as a player. He likes to be a carry too, he likes to be a playmaker. He's a 9-time champion regionally, and he wants to prove that he can compete with GA on an international stage.
Gragas, the fourth pick, locked in here for WE. More frontline capability for these guys, more initiation potential. We know how much a well-placed explosive cast can do to completely change a game or change a team fight. The ability to separate multiple targets, the ability to pick someone off like that can go a long way. Let's see if WE can execute on that one the way they want to, as they also lock in Corki, fifth and final pick.
So, Team WE, They're going for a bit of a... I'd say that the big thing I can see about Team WE's comp right now is they have no reliable way to engage. Yes, you have the Gragas, but remember, on 718, he has had a slight nerf to the hitbox on his E and his engage power, which means that, especially when you're going up against things like a Braum and a Maokai and a Lee Sin as well.
There we go, Vedius. That's what you were talking about. Mentioning how with the nerfs to the Cinderhulk, maybe the drift away from those tanky junglers, and especially with the Lee Sin buffs recently on 7.18, we might get to see Adi on those playmakers.
Oh, this makes me so excited, Captain Flash. But let's just focus in on WE, because we were talking about how their main and only engage really is the Gragas or a potential flank coming out from the Cho'Gath. But aside from that, you're very much about sieging, poking. You have the Corki, you have the Xayah, and in these late game fights, it's all just going to be about who can kill the enemy front line sooner. Because you have the Kog'Maw going up against the Cho'Gath and the Gragas, and then you have the Corki and the Xayah going up against the Maokai and the Braum. The big difference is going to be Lyon and this mid-jungle duo, Syndra, Lee. So much potential for snowballing that mid lane. We talked about how they could play around White Lotus, but I think their attention is going to shift a little bit more in this game.
And you've also got to be a little bit concerned, or at least aware if you're the Cho'Gath in this situation. I mean, what is the traditional weakness of picking this Cho'Gath? Even when everybody was saying, wow, this champion is so strong, people were saying, yeah, you're really great, but you're really vulnerable during the laning phase. People can gank you, they can set you behind, and if you're up against somebody with great setup CC like a Maokai and a easily executable ganker like a Lee Sin, there might be possibility up there as well. Sky's the limit for Adi in this game. You said it yourself, this is the guy who's going to carry. If this team will win, let's see if he can do it.
I'm excited, Captain Flyers. It's the first game of the World Championship, Team WE versus Lyon Gaming. Adi is playing an early game carry jungler, Seiya on the Syndra, and Team WE, they're going for a little bit more of a reserved competition. They're going to be looking to just play the slow early game, and Condi, his goal is going to be just trying to stop Adi from getting that snowball roll.
Right, keep that Lee Sin under control. Don't allow the early gank machine to get up and running the way that it wants to. And Condi, this is a guy who is seen by many as one of the best, if not strictly the best jungler in the LPL. People say that this guy is absolutely amazing. Yeah, going to take a little bit of damage here. But Ghost also used by Seiya. I don't know if that was a misclick or something, but you did hear the sound go off there. The summoner spell is going to be down momentarily, so gonna have to wait a couple of minutes before that one comes back online. But you do want to keep your eyes on Condi. You do want to keep your eyes on Adi, because a lot of the time for Team WE, Condi's performance and exactly where he decides to go and what he decides to do, that determines whether or not they're playing a game aggressively or just on the back foot.
Exactly that. A lot of the team's playstyle is very much dictated by how Condi decides to play the early game. Is he going to look to try and get some kind of early snowball, or is he going to look to just focus on farming, providing assistant pressure, setting up vision? And when you look at the comp of Lyon, it's pretty obvious where Adi's looking to go, right? It's very clearly the Syndra. So his focus should be, okay, I need to get wards around the middle lane. I need to get an early control ward on the river. I need to make sure that my mid lane is properly supported. The fact that Jie doesn't have cleanse could be something to exploit later on into the game, but we'll see how things progress. Because the thing about Team WE is they are a very well-rounded team. They seem to have no obvious weaknesses. They can play early game snowballing, or they can play late game team fighting. The one area that I feel that they are weak against is when they get put behind early. Largely because they just play reserve. They play back. They wait for an opportunity later on into the game, whether it be maybe playing around the Baron, maybe playing around the Elder Drake, or just waiting for that slight mistake to come out from their opposition that they can look to punish. But if their opponent doesn't make any mistakes, if their opponent just slowly pushes their advantage further and further, Team WE just concede the map. They just give the freedom to their opposition to do whatever they want. And when you look back against their series versus RNG, RNG had their cleanest games thanks to that game lead that they got. So it's going to be very important for Lyon to be able to find that early lead if they want a shot against Team WE.
Yeah, Team WE, they have a fairly low average game time if you're looking at the stats of the different teams here at Worlds. And you would contribute that to exactly what you were talking about. If they're ahead, they're going to snowball, they're going to do well, they're going to win the game. If they're behind, they won't take that many actions. It's not like they're going to turn this into a bloodbath and they'll just let it go. But now, some damage onto GA here in the mid lane. Seiya, not a lot of mana to continue fighting this one, but we'll take him down low. Doesn't have an Ignite as a summoner spell there, so won't look to go any further for now. Adi potentially thinking about showing up in here. GA is vulnerable. Both summoner spells available. Audi jumping in. Sonic Wave not going to find the mark. GA just casually sidestepping that.
You've also got to keep your eyes on Condi. He is very aware of where Audi is. He was stealing away some of the Raptors, but there was a ward on there reading the play. Now Audi and Condi just going to butt heads and make waves. So Audi not able to find any early success as of yet, but there's still plenty of the early game left to go. Condi doing his best to try and punish as a collapse happens down on the Lion jungler.
Condi looking for Audi yet again. 957 making the rotation around here as well. He did shove the top lane into the turret there against Giral, so not really losing a lot of anything at this point in time. Heal going to be spended there for the Ghost in mid lane. Seiya's Ghost for the heal of GA. Means both of these mid laners now only have the flashes ready to go. Audi still hanging around. Condi still hanging around. Audi comes over the wall, utilizing the safeguard, finds Condi. Sonic Wave lands, Resonating Strike not going to be going in.
They're not going to commit. They don't want to run the risk just yet. GA is fairly low, but Condi has that slight health advantage in the early game. It's going to force Audi back. So junglers return. Vision will spot Condi out once more. And Giral, he's coming for the collapse.
Giral is going to go ahead, prime this situation with that enchanted sapling into the brush. Make sure he gets extra damage should they decide to fight in this area. 957 just walking himself right back up here into the top lane. And I mentioned how the Cho'Gath is vulnerable to ganks early, but if he does not get ganked, if he does not get pressured, he's very annoying to deal with. He can shove the lane very easily. He's got plenty of AoE. Audi now trying to smite to get his HP back. Condi walking back up in his face yet again. Condi just trying to get himself involved in as much as possible early.
So we've been talking a lot about the junglers in this early part of the game, Flowers, but we've also got to take a look at some of the other lanes, like down in the bottom, Mystic. He was able to get an early back thanks to the pressure that they had put down onto the Kog'Maw and the Braum. And we talked a little bit about in the champs, like going for an early Braum from the side of Lion. Very defensive support playstyle. They want to make sure that they have that peel for White Lotus, along with providing that overall frontline for the composition. But he struggles during the laning phase. Janna and Xayah, they're a very powerful duo, especially when you have that additional range support. And you get shielded, you get that bonus AD, things just get a little bit awkward for the Kog'Maw. So thanks to that early push, they were able to get an early back, but they weren't able to actually afford a pickaxe, which means that he's now only sitting on the double longsword, which means that he's likely going to go for a very early Essence Reaver, very likely an early Core Fields to get that early bit of AD and cooldown reduction.
Meanwhile, White Lotus on his first back, going to go ahead, grab himself the Berserker Greaves, a lot of extra attack speed, extra movement speed as well to escape any difficult situations or run down someone if they find themselves in a lead. Seiya hitting level 6 now on the Syndra. You were talking about how you wanted to see focus on this mid lane from Lyon Gaming, see if they can make something happen there. Once Syndra has that ulti, that's just that much more of a green light for these guys to look for that.
And remember, the heal is down. Keep your eyes on Audi gaining vision control around the bottom half of the map. Ideally, he wants to just drop a ward around the Raptors so that he can prepare for a possible counter gank from Condi. But he is afraid right now. He doesn't feel confident enough to try and make that sort of play. And WE, they're reading exactly where Audi is on the map. You got to remember, Condi, he is this kind of jungler that knows how to play that early game style himself. He's very cognizant of what Audi is trying to do, and I feel like that he is reading his enemy jungler fairly well so far in this early game.
Has done a good job so far preventing Audi from getting anything done. You saw him following him around both the mid lane and the top lane before. Mystic and Ben shoved their opponents up underneath the turret down here in the bottom side. And remember, Lyon Gaming, this is a team that in their own region, 9 championships back to back to back. I'm not going to repeat it 9 different times, but you get the idea. These guys win all the time. And a big reason they do that is because they are simply better than their opponents when it comes to laning, when it comes to individual player talent. So going up against WE here, doing a good job so far, staying relatively even, but falling slightly behind in farm in the bottom and top lanes with a lead for themselves there in mid.
The big thing about Lyon, though, that I've seen in particular over the last split is that they're no longer reliant on having that early game snowball advantage that they have been so dominant with over several seasons because of the shift in the meta, as we talked about during Champions. Like, that means that they've improved their ability to play the map. They understand better how to use pressure in terms of lanes. They know when they should set deep wards. They're much smarter about when they choose to pick fights, and because they've been forced to adapt, that has allowed the team to grow. But the issue is that so far within their region, there is yet to be a team that can truly challenge this superstar lineup domestically. And that's where we see the opportunity for more growth when they come to these international events. Because remember, Lyon, they went 4-2 in their group at MSI, but they ended up dropping to the Gigabyte Marines, who ended up representing their region exceptionally well during the group stages at MSI. but they seem to have learned from that. And from hearing from the players, they really want to prove to themselves that they can go up against WE, but for WE, they're just the clear favorites in their group. Some even argue that this is the best team representative from the LPL.
Which is interesting, right? Because you don't expect, when you're sending 3 representatives to Worlds, one of those representatives has to play during the play-in stage, the other 2 did not. You're not expecting the one that has to play during play-ins to be the one that people are favoring.
Exactly.
But, like we've talked about, WE, a fan-favorite team, a team that a lot of people have a lot of faith in, star players in both Mystic and Condi. Right now, still no kills on the board yet. About 9 minutes into the game. Package is armed and ready on GA. Has that one if he sees the opportunity to use it.
And all summoner spells are back up. The big difference is that Gerard will have his TP earlier sooner, which means that Lyon could try and make a TP play somewhere, but with the amount of push that 957 has over his top lane counterpart, it becomes awkward to try and make a TP play in the bottom side, unless there's some kind of jungle assistance from Audi up in the top lane.
Speaking of Audi, I want to jump back real quick to what you were talking about, specifically in Champion Select. And at the start of the game, the very beginning of Summoner's Rift, before that base portal ever even fell, you said Condi wants to contain Audi this game. He wants to shut that down, not allow him to do anything. And considering his score is 0, 0, and 0 right now, it looks like he's done a pretty good job.
But also just keep an eye on the wards as well. They know exactly where Audi is in the jungle. They're going to be the ones to start this Drake. And remember, Gerard, he has TP up, and 957 does not.
The collapse is coming in. This is going to be a showdown as it is secured by Condi and Team WE. Mystic trying to get himself away, utilizing the ulti for that one. Explosive cast going to be coming out from Condi as now he finds himself rooted up, locked down. And first blood of Worlds 2017 goes to Lyon Gaming.
WE secured themselves the Ocean Drake, but because they did not have the teleport available from 957, they could not commit to the fight. Audi did a great job of singling out the AD carry of WE and forcing one of the key damage dealers out of the fight very early on. Now, ZA, he wants to try and force Saya back, which he will successfully do. But remember who got that kill? Saya in the middle lane. He wants to get ahead in the early game, and by picking up this kill, it's a great way to start. So, Audi, you'd think that he wants to commit here, but he doesn't. His eyes are all on Mystic. He wants to shut him down, but unfortunately for him, his Q runs out as Mystic flashes away, and Condi gives away his life to guarantee the safety of his carries. The TP came through from Geralt as well, and while the top lane tower will take a fair amount of damage, Lyon getting that first blood is going to be a big confidence booster coming into game 1.
They did get the first blood, but remember their opponents did secure the Ocean Drake, and this early into the match, that can do a lot for you, making sure that you're able to stay sustained in those lanes, have your health and mana bars a little bit more topped off, and just look at the Vedius. Even though 600 gold's worth of first blood money went to Lyon Gaming, WE is still in the lead.
Yeah, and I feel like a fair amount of that is due to the difference up in the top lane. You can see a slight 300 advantage going in the favor of 957. But also, the biggest disparity is coming from the supports.
Yep.
Funnily enough, when you play that Ardent Sensor support, one of the big things that people say is the reason why it's so strong and so easy to get is because of Coin. Coin gets you a lot of sustain during the laning phase, but also it just gets you a lot of gold. And there were a lot of discussions around, are we going to see the barrier heal in the bottom lane to get the Ardent Sensor even faster, along with the Relic Shield sort of build. But right now, he's doing a perfectly fine job. He's well on track to get that early Ardent Sensor. And the thing is, it gives Mystic a much stronger early game power spike. So once GA completes his Trinity Force, and once Mystic completes the Essence Reaver along with an Ardent Sensor, WE are going to say, we're actually quite happy to fight right now because our top lane tank is good, our 2 carries can do damage, and so far, Lyon have not been able to get the sort of early snowballing that they initially wanted.
Exactly. When you compare the gold between these two supports, even though the farm between the AD carries is relatively even, as now we've got a fight breaking out. Exhaust down onto White Lotus, root out onto Genfix. Stun comes down onto Mystic as he continues pressing this forward. Minion wave going to find itself being slammed into the tier 1 turret here as Condi shows up to continue to scare these guys back. 957 teleport is available. Gerald does not have his. Tornado flies off, and Lyon will hold the line for now.
We also saw GA moving through the river, and we have to come back to this vision control that is in favor of WE. They have lit up the bottom side of the map with just blue wards. They have control wards in the river and the entrances. They make sure they have control over the Scuttle Crab, and they're all about getting this early bottom tower. Lyon are really struggling to find an answer, and they're just going to have to concede.
Yep, Team WE going for that objective-based gameplay to saying, you can have first blood, we're going to take the first turret instead. Ending up getting the for themselves. Hanging around, clearing away as many minions as possible, letting the turret eat up as much of that value as they can before taking it down, and that will bring WE up to a greater than 1,000 gold lead here 13 minutes into the game.
So now you would expect both the Ardent Sensor and the Essence View to be completed for WE. GA is on track to complete its Trinity Force, and everything is looking very positive for WE. We're yet to see Oddie have the level of impact that we wanted to see after himself picking up this Lee Sin. Lee Sin did have a few minor buffs to his shield, particularly in the early game, making his trading and skirmishing that little bit stronger, and combined with the Cinderhulk nerfs, tanks are a little bit weaker, but Condi's just controlled him through vision. He's made sure to get deep wards and defensive wards to be able to track what Oddie is doing, and as a result, the rest of WE have been able to respond accordingly, and Oddie just has not been able to find success as of yet.
Audie's still looking to make some kind of a play on this Lee Sin. Flash nearly back up, has the Dragon's Rage available too. With those spells both up and running, you will be able to see a lot of playmaking potential out of this champion. Jaral hanging out up here, firing off the ulti against Mystic and Ben just as a zoning tool to clear these guys away and provide an opportunity for Lyon Gaming to grab the bottom tier 1 turret against their opponents. 957, the only man standing down here trying to stop this one. Nothing he can do except throw a Rupture in there and walk away as Lyon Gaming ties the turret count.
Love the play from Jaral there, because he realizes that WE are much faster on the play. They're already at the tier 1 in the top lane, and Lyon were yet to really get significant damage down onto that bottom tier 1 tower. So by clearing out the wave, by sacrificing his ulti, he allows Lyon to clear it out, and now they can start moving up to challenge this Rift Herald, so Lyon can try and stop WE from just running away with the map.
Problem with trying to stop this, though, you have to remember that GA does have the package available. TP also going to be used by 957 here, but the rest of Lyon looking to collapse onto him. Rift Herald still going to be taken down. 957 caught out alone. Going to be juggled around as package comes in through GA. Going to go over the red buff wall. 2 roots down onto the remaining members of Lyon in the top side. They get separated, and Audie goes down. GA going to be forced to flash away from that one, escaping the stun from the Scatter of the Weak as WE gets themselves out. It's a 1-for-1, but they found the Rift Herald.
So it looks like an even fight, but WE are the team to walk away with the Rift Herald. Another advantage gain, and now their eyes are straight onto this mid lane tier 1. White Lotus has gone back to base. They don't even need to use the objective as they hammer down onto the final outer tower from Lyon.
A little bit more damage coming through there. Stun finds its way onto Mystic, but he's still got his Janna nearby, keeping him safe. Infernal Drake has spawned. This is always that highly contested neutral objective that nobody wants to give away for free. TP going to be used by Jaral. He will have the ultimate up momentarily for this fight. Condi still looking to burn that Infernal Drake down. Is going to be secured by Team WE. Mystic going to be kept alive. An extra moment by Ben. Does get himself away. Genthix and the rest of Lyon still looking to close in on these guys as the Cat Cavalry arrives. The root comes down onto Ben. He's going to be stunned up yet again. The damage comes through. White Lotus going to be grabbing that one as the artillery will find the double kill for White Lotus.
Lyon are finding all of these kills onto Team WE, but they're not translating into objectives. They have a minion wave in the bottom lane. They have 5 members. You have Oddie flanking from the side. They could finally look to get themselves another tower as WE falls short.
Lyon wanting to pull the trigger here, but 957 holding the line with the Ruptures and the Screams. Gonna keep these guys away for now. White Lotus taking an extra tower shot on his way out, and Lyon is going to be stopped. Exactly what you said, Vedius. They find the fights, they find the victories there, but where's the prize?
Exactly that. WE are just so objective focused in this game. They realize that at this point in the game, before they'd been able to spend their gold, they are not strong enough to win that 5v5 fight. So they just want to take as many objectives off the board as they can. They've done a great job with the early towers. And here, perhaps they got a little bit too greedy for the Drake. But initially, things look very good. Mystic is able to, thanks to the ultimate from Ben, back away, uses the Blade Caller to just buy a little bit more time, but the Maokai ulti, you're in Maokai's territory, he locks you up. The double stun coming out from Seiya as well allows White Lotus to just catch up and rain hell from above, allowing this Cogmore to now pick up 2 kills. And just look at who's got the gold on the side of Lyon right now, Flowers, because that is a 102 Syndra, a 202 Cogmore. Rageblade, Morello, now completed for Lyon's 2 main hyper carries. Lyon are setting themselves up for success. They have gold on the people that they rely on to succeed, but WE are still in control of the map. They have more towers, they have more overall gold, and their composition is still scaling just as they would like.
Team WE with that 2,000 gold lead now, pushing up into the jungle of Lyon Gaming, wanting to get down some vision. Instead, Mystic losing about half his HP nearly instantly. The damage coming out there from Saya, like you said, with that Morello Namicon completed along with the Sorcerer's Shoes. He's a serious damage threat to these squishy carries on the side of Team WE. Have to see what WE can do with the rest of this lead. They have been playing the better objective game so far, but they do have to worry about that Rage Blade Kog'Maw that you mentioned.
But just to give some context, this whole goal lead is entirely on the supports. Mid, AD, top, and jungle are all so even. It is all about that Janna and how much of a gold advantage she has over Gentex, which means that coming into these next few fights, these teams are still very even though the gold lead does not suggest that. And that just makes this so exciting. The fact that Lyon, the clear underdogs in this first game of the World Championship, are so far holding their own in terms of the fights. But WE truly turns on in the late game fights. That is what they're known for within their region. That is what they've been able to dominate so many other teams with, and it is Mystic, the guy we highlighted at the very start. He is the main team fight prodigy that gives so much success to Team WE.
And we mentioned it earlier, talking about how Condi's early game performance is what determines the tempo of Team WE throughout the game. This isn't a team that was saying, okay, we need to get ahead of the Kog'Maw early. We've got to win early or the whole game's lost. This is a team that said, control Lee, scale, and wait.
Yep.
And right now, they're controlling Lee, they're scaling, and they're waiting.
Exactly. And you look at things like their Baron taking potential. The thing about Cho'Gath, an extra smite is always handy when playing around the big purple worm. You have double AD carry in Corki and Xayah. This is a fast Baron taking team, and even with his brand new shiny armor, it's not going to be enough to deal with when this team just decides to commit to that objective. And it's going to be the onus on Lyon to make sure that they don't lose control around that Baron, because right now the vision difference is stark in favor of WE.
At the same time, though, we can't count Lyon out of this one. Like you said, impressive so far to see them going toe-to-toe with a team like WE. And they do have that 4-1 kill lead so far. They have been playing the fights well for themselves. Of course, those fights have been breaking out because WE is starting off on the objective. Lyon has been closing in, catching them between both the Lyon Gaming team and the objective that WE has already started. But we may have to see how that story changes if these guys get in just a straight-up 5v5 brawl.
And now we're getting to a point where we can truly assess how good Lyon is at being able to control these sideways. How good is their vision control? Because a team like WE is already known that they understand how to play the map. They understand how to play macro. And one of the big criticisms for Lyon in the past was that they're just a team that relies on mechanical skill and just being better than their opponents. But they can't rely on that anymore. They need to show more than that. And what we're seeing so far is that they're still being pushed back by WE. They're still giving a lot of freedom to WE. They're a little bit too afraid right now to pull the trigger, but that Kog'Maw is on track to completing his second item. They still have decent vision control around their own entrances, and they have a spot of vision on the Baron itself, along with the main mid lane area. So Lyon, their focus for now is just setting up more of a defensive approach rather than we want to try and be the ones to make the next play.
And I really want to bring attention to White Lotus specifically. You mentioned how the Kog'Maw 2-0 and 2, he's 100% kill participation so far. We talked about how good this guy is as a player. And going up against Mystic, that is not the easy matchup to say, oh, look at how good of a player I am. This is the guy that, remember when Mark and Zyrene and Dracos were talking at the start of this about how Mystic might be the best player in the entirety of play-ins. And White Lotus is going toe-to-toe with this guy. He's the only one on his team who's winning in CS comparison right now. 100% kill participation, like I already mentioned. He might just be able to step up this game and be that carry.
And with both teams just grouping up as a 5-man in mid, you can just keep your eyes on draw on the bottom. Look at this ward that's in the middle lane right there at the edge next to Saya. That could be a huge flanking ward as WE and the squad try to push up into the middle lane, giving Lyon that opportunity to force a fight. But WE, they pull back. They don't overcommit to the middle lane. Their eyes are on this potential third Drake, setting up for the Elder. As WE, they're looking for the fight. Righteous Glory popped.
Righteous Glory used by 957, looking to go in, finding the silence onto 2. Knock-up landing there onto Adi. Condi looking to find his way into the side of the fight there. Jaral makes his way in, gonna go ahead and fire off the ultimate. 957 caught out here a little bit. That Cho'Gath is gonna be the first target. Bursted down. Nye immediately, Adi grabbing the kill onto him as now White Lotus having to back away. The Featherstorm comes down, the stun, finding its way onto Jie as Jaral continues to tank here in the front line. Lyon in retreat. They're going to lose one as White Lotus now exhausted. But A massive scat of the week will find multiple targets, and WE will be sent home on their back feet.
And that was the playmaker we were talking about. Seiya in the middle lane, utilizing this Syndra to punish WE as they commit a little bit too hard. Captain Flowers, they have 4 members left alive. Their eyes are on a 23-minute Baron against WE. Things are looking great for the Latin American North representatives.
Their health bars are low. This is a risky take, Medius. I think they might not be able to clear it. Audi has to jump back in to safeguard Genthix, and they have to disengage. They can't secure the Baron.
Unfortunate for Lyon, but still a big team fight win for them. You can hear the crowd getting so excited about these close fights. W, they still have the gold lead, but remember, a lot of that is on the support. And the fact that Lyon were able to turn around that fight is so good. So WE commit hard. They want to force this fight, but they cannot successfully get onto White Lotus, and that allows the front line to come into effect. Joral soaks up a lot of the initial damage. You can see Audi here as well with a fantastic kick onto Mystic, but there's no follow-up damage. Say he doesn't want to commit. And then you have to see so much damage being sent onto the back line of Lyon. Joral falls as well. And you're now at this point where it's 1-for-1. Lyon are on the back foot, but then a great 3-man stun with the follow-up damage from White Lotus allows them to get the turnaround fight in their favor, but they just don't have the HP to get the big purple worm, and it ends up in just a neutral standstill between the two.
And look at the damage comparison from that last team fight. Nearly 5,500 damage from Seiya's Syndra to be the highest scoring member in that fight. Really doing a lot of work for this team.
And this is one of the things that I was so excited about coming into this tournament, Flowers, because I feel like right now, in the current meta, has the greatest potential for upsets because of how much the game revolves around team fighting. And you can say a lot about macro and your ability to play sideways, but when you look at just the raw talent, Lyon are going head-to-head with Team WE. They are holding their own in these fights. And it just goes to show that one bad team fight from WE can give such a massive swing of momentum in the favor of Lyon, but the same is true for the other side. WE, known for their ability to team fight, is resulting in these very close back and forth exchanges.
Want to go ahead and update. We are hitting those 2-item power spikes for a lot of people now. Righteous Glory done for Jiral's Maokai, along with the Spirit Visage from earlier. Knight's Vow now completed onto Condi's Gragas, so he'll have that much extra protection for these carries. Rapid Fire plus the Trinity Force for GA's Corki means much more poke damage as well. Runan's Hurricane completed a little while back for White Lotus's Kog'Maw, actually, for that team fight damage, as now he'll be looking to solo down this Cloud Drake, get a little bit of extra movement speed for his team.
Fun fact for any players at home that are struggling to deal with Kog'Maw, Adaptive Helm, really good item, especially against Rageblade Kog'Maw, because even though his W does percentage health damage, it's actually magic damage, which means that when you build an Adaptive Helm, each one of those empowered autos, that damage gets reduced, especially with a Rageblade, which gives you more AP. It is very effective at shutting down a mid-game Kog'Maw. But so far, we're not seeing any early Adaptive Helms. They're just trying to focus on...
Well, we've got one, but it's on his team.
Yeah, exactly that. I think we're going to get another fight soon, Flowers.
Baron is up, remember, was not secured earlier. Silence down onto Jiral, who's going to be taking a lot of damage and bursted down by the power of the Cho'Gath ultimate. WE finding themselves 1 for free. Ultimate coming out from Mystic there as they continue to chase now onto Genthix, who's going to find himself knocked back by the explosive cast. 2 for 0, Team WE finding a vulnerability in Lyon and punishing immediately.
Exactly that. Lyon dropped the ball and WE immediately punished. They identified Jiral just alone in the river. Seiya, he was in the top side of the river, and they spotted him out thanks to that control ward that they have further up on the side of the map. They get the immediate punish, they take out the tank, but they're not going to yet commit to that Baron.
They got rid of the top laner, they got rid of the support, but the jungler is still up. WE does not want to run that risk of potentially having the Baron stolen away, giving an opportunity for Seiya and White Lotus to jump in there and pour damage into the WE lines as they make the Baron, so they'll just go for the safe option instead. Their gold lead has grown to about 3,000 now. Despite the fact that they have not been ahead in this game in terms of kills ever, they are maintaining the gold lead through strict superior objective control and patience.
Exactly that, Flowers. Right now, they have been controlling the map so much better than Lyon, even though Lyon have been finding a lot of great fights and a lot of kills. The important thing to remember is that this dual AD carry is going to be extremely threatening when it comes to killing that front line later into the game. Remember what we talked about in Champion Select. It's very much in these late game fights about which front line drops faster. And when you have double AD carries on 3 items, funnily enough, they do quite a lot of damage. And sure, you can say the same for Cogmore, but Syndra, she struggles a little bit, especially once that magic resistance really starts stacking for both the Cho'Gath and the Gragas too. So the later this game goes, the harder things are going to get for Lyon to really win out these team fights. And WE, they know this. They're putting the pressure on Lyon, and they're saying, come on, make your play, make your move. And so far, Lyon have done a decent job at making things work in their favor, but they're yet to really translate it into a significant map game.
Lyon recognizing the WE is trying to set up some kind of a play around the Baron here. Audi getting himself back. Say up on the scout of the week. Not going to be finding anything with it. The burst coming down onto Audi as 957 going to be tanking all the damage. And White Lotus will seal his fate. Audi now having to retreat away from Team WE's collapse. Gentex on the front line here. This will likely just be a 1-for-1 trade unless Audi has some massively fancy feet to get away from this one. The juke boots are on, but I don't think they are going to be.
He's still running.
No, he's still trying it, but that last rocket from GA takes him down.
But this is still fine because WE don't find a significant team fight win. They give up pressure in the mid lane, allowing Lyon to get onto this tower. And it ends up only being a 1-for-1 trade, so Lyon end up coming out ahead in that play that WE tried to force.
Ben nearly taken down by White Lotus, going to be forced to flash out from that one with just under 100 HP remaining. White Lotus's damage, honestly, when 957 was in the jungle zoning this entire team away, he's got his stone plate on, his flex is up and running, and he just gets eviscerated.
White Lotus is just doing so much work for his team. Got put on the Cogmore. We thought he was going to be one of the big carries for the team, and he's just been farming away, picking up these kills, yet to die in this first match. Remember, ladies and gentlemen, this is only a best of 1. This is the group stages of the play-ins. All these teams only play 4 games, and a win here could mean a lot.
WE deciding to pull the trigger onto Baron now. Lyon needs to close in and do something. Baron down below 1/4 HP, going to be secured here likely by Condi. Secured instead by 957 is now. WE might find themselves caught between a rock and a hard place. Gerald on the front line. Is Condi going to be potentially taken down next? Mystic trying to get himself away, but he's going to be picked off. It's 3-for-0 for Lyon Gaming, but the Baron still up and running on the solo laners for WE.
WE, they knew they had the Cho'Gath. They knew they could secure the objective, along with the fact that Audi was dead, but Lyon were in the better position to fight. The Cogmore was completely untouched, and Audi even got a flank onto Mystic. Lyon, yes, they lose the Baron, but they are consistently winning these fights, Flowers. This game is still so close, and I could not think of a better way to kick off the World Championship.
This is one hell of a kickoff between these two teams. Lyon Gaming from the LLN going blow for blow with Team WE from the LPL. One more look at the Baron fight.
So Audi just gets there a little bit too late, but WE, they're forced in the back of the pit, and they're just trying to disengage, while the rest of Lyon, they're just focusing down the front line. Then they're like, oh, your front line is retreating. That means I'll just hit the AD carry into the front line and make him the primary target for White Lotus. 6-0-5 on the Latin American North superstar right now. He's completed his 3rd item, working on his 4th. And we talked about how things are going to get hard for Lyon in the late game. Well, if things keep fighting, if fights keep going this way for Lyon, they're not going to struggle at all.
Now let's keep in mind, Baron is still up and running on both GA and 957. So they will have that for another 2 minutes to potentially utilize as a pushing tool against Lyon Gaming. And WE has been good at controlling objectives so far. It'll be up to Lyon to stop that and find an opportunity to do another one of these immaculate team fights that they have showcased so far. The time being, though, they're on the retreat as WE controls the area around this next Drake. It will be yet another Infernal. Maokai Ultimate going to be fired off, seeing who they can potentially catch out here. Condi going to be rooted up by the very edge of one of those cats. White Lotus taking a lot of damage early on, but not as much as Condi. A rampage for Seiya. 957 now going to be stunned up, bursted down before he can do a whole lot of anything. Seiya grabbing himself the double kill. They managed to take Ben down as well. Audi nearly going to be killed, does get taken down. White Lotus attacking the Infernal Drake. Stunned down onto GA. Both damage dealers still active for Team WE. Gerald trying to zone these guys away. Seiya also going to be on point. Secured the Infernal Drake for Lyon.
You're now starting to see the issue with WE's composition with their inability to reliably start fights. Because you have a Braum and a Maokai just sitting on the front line, Condi has no reliable way to just pick a focus target that he wants to knock into the rest of his team. That means that WE, every time a fight starts, it's actually on Lion's terms. It is always them that are kicking off these fights, and it's always in their favor. So Condi gets separated from the rest of his team. They realize that, oh, well, we want to focus down the front line anyway, so we may as well just kill him. Braum is then just dealing with the other 4 members, and then Lion turn their attention. Now, this is where you start to look at Mystic and you realize how effective this guy can be when he's put in a position to carry. Landing feathers onto the right targets, making sure that he's still dealing damage in order to make sure that things don't fall apart for the side of WE, but that's still another big team fight win for the side of Lyon Gaming.
More good fighting from Lyon Gaming. This team seriously looking to impress here in game number 1 of Worlds 2017. 1,000 gold behind Team WE. Behind the team that everybody said, this is the team that you don't have to worry about in play-ins. Like, this is the team, a lot of people were expecting these guys to go really far, even in the main event, past the play-ins. But right now, Lyon Gaming is looking like they might be a serious threat to WE starting off strong.
And that's why this meta is so great for these regions that in the past you wouldn't really expect to be able to challenge some of these top teams, because it all eventually just boils down to these fights. These fights are just so important, and the mechanical prowess of Oddie, Seiya, White Lotus, the whole team is just keeping up with that of WE, a team that's praised for their team fighting prowess within the LPL region. And it's just so exciting to see these two teams butt heads, but it's still about, can Lyon close?
Right.
Because it's one thing to be able to win a lot of fights, but it's another to then translate that lead into a game win.
They have had a lot of good fights, though, so far, Vedius. We cannot say that enough. This team truly impressing in the actual PvP of League of Legends. 4 items, not including the boots, now completed on White Lotus. Blade of the Ruined King, all the way done, means he's going to have that much more HP shred against these front lines. And look at the build on the side of Condi. He's got the adaptive helm you were talking about. He's got Cinder Hook and he's got Knight's Vow. But up against a Blade of the Ruined King Kog'Maw, that's a grand total of 40 armor. Wow. Because he's got Mercury Treads as well. That's not very effective.
No,
that's preventing the shred.
And there's no locket yet complete on the side of WE to mitigate some of that Syndra burst too. So sure, that's a fair amount of magic resistance, but at the same time, that locket really helps mitigate the burst, especially onto someone like a Janna. If that Seiya just insta-kills the Janna, then suddenly you're losing the power of Ardent Sensor. You're losing that same level of utility.
The carries on the side of Lyon Gaming are a combined 12, 0, and 15.
Wow.
And as cool as the 12 and the 15 are, the big number in that lineup for me is the 0. Neither one of these two has died yet in this game.
And it's just because WE have no real backline threat. They just have to kill through the front line, and there's just so much disengage, there's so much ability for Lyon to immediately peel back off. The WE really are struggling, and I feel like it's just because a lot of these fights have been WE forcing them. We have to remember that. Like, if we think to the mid lane fight, it was WE Righteous Glory from 957, flanking aim from Condi. The fight ended up backfiring. Around the Dragon, it was WE starting off these Dragons, baiting Lyon into these fights. The Baron, it was WE starting off the Baron and asking Lyon to come and fight them. So Lyon, they haven't needed to be proactive in trying to make any of these fights happen. They've just waited for WE to make the move, and then they've reactively been able to successfully punish them. They've been the ones in the better position. And WE just makes you wonder, did they need to make a lot of these fights happen? Did they need to push this as much as they have? Because now Lyon are in a position where I would give the teamfight advantage over to them in the current state of the game.
Well, the current state of the game also includes a 25-second timer before Baron Nashor respawns, as well as about 100 seconds until Elder Dragon rears his head for the first time this game. Pretty even Drake count between the teams as well. 2 versus 2, an Infernal on both sides, and then Ocean as well as Cloud. As Lyon setting up a potential trap here to send White Lotus out into the mid lane. Clearing out the wave, pushing that down with the artillery. And now they move towards Baron.
So for W, I'm still keeping my eyes on Mystic. How much of a teamfight carry can he be? A lot of praise has gone towards this 80 carry. Now's the moment to see if he can step up.
All right, they're just pulling the trigger. There is no waiting around on this one, Vedius. We are starting Baron Nashor up. Lyon Gaming has it burned down to about 1/3 now. Condi looking to potentially contest this one. Ulti fired off by the Maokai. They're going to find their way onto 957 here at the start. Jaral going to be taken very low. Condi now into the front line. Lyon Gaming potentially in some trouble. Audi taking a lot of burst on this one as White Lotus now going to be caught out. Condi potentially finding his way there into the back line, but WE is very low. Jana keeping him alive.
Ooh, these fights, man, they are so close, but now
It's on a
WE.
razor's edge, but WE has such a health advantage now. Mystic and GA both in fantastic condition.
TP?
Critical health from all of Lyon, but the TP is canceled.
Cancelled? Oh, this is risky now. Flowers, I think they're going to lose the Baron.
They do. Baron secured by Team WE. That was awesome for these guys. They were able to win the fight. They were able to keep Lyon away. They secure the objective.
This time it was Lyon forcing the play. They were the ones to kick off the objective. The fight looked so good for them initially, but WE get the turnaround. They do not lose their tanky frontline. Cho'Gath does not end up dying. They almost kill White Lotus, but there was enough peel from Genthix and Jaral to keep him alive. But because of all the low health members, they're the ones then to commit to the Baron. They had the TP on the Cho'Gath. He then rejoins the fight, and they take that Baron down. They now have their eyes set on the Elder Dragon too. They have 2 Drakes in their favor. Can Lyon answer this big objective?
WE's got Baron up on all their members. They've also got the Corki package available. This is not something you want to run into if you're the side of Lyon Gaming, and they will not contest this, but now they're staring down the barrel of 2 massive buffs up on WE at the same time for the next 2.5 minutes.
Oh, WE, they've come back with a surge. Their composition is very strong at this point in the game, and Lyon, they're the ones on the back foot. They're the ones going to have to demonstrate if they can find another fantastic fight as WE looks to break into the base of Lyon Gaming.
WE with nearly full builds on those carries as well. The damage threat is very real. They've got that 1 cannon minion boosted up by the power of the Baron buff, continuing to chip away at this tier 3 turret, waiting on that next minion wave. And then you will likely see these guys moving up, trying to break into this base of Lyon Gaming.
Just keep your eyes on the top and bot lane as well. They don't have a wave yet from WE, so they only have the options of pushing in mid. Lyon are doing a fine job defending, but that tower is slowly being chipped away.
More and more damage flying out. Remember, you get 135 true damage over 3 seconds from the Elder Dragon burn when you've got these 2 Elemental Drakes under your belt. Team WE in a good spot right now to continue this push, keep threatening onto this. That mid lane tier 3 now down to about 1/3 HP means the next wave could be the one where they decide to go all in. Then coming up right behind the rest of the team, GA on the front line pushing this one down, and WE will march straight into Lyon's territory, kick in the front door, and take the inhibitor out with it.
So Lyon recognized that, you know what, it's not the end of the world if we just lose our middle inhibitor. They have an Elder Dragon, they have Baron empowered minions, they have a gold advantage. Let's not risk losing the game right now. Let's just accept the losses, know that WE cannot punish us anywhere else, and we'll just try to come back later on. WE, they're in a great spot right now.
And how this game has shifted, Vedius. We were talking about how Lyon looked stronger for the time being. The gold gap was slowly but surely closing. Lyon looked like they were in the driver's seat. And then the Baron fight doesn't go their way. WE knows exactly how to play it to keep them away and make sure the situation goes their way. And with that Baron, they demonstrate the strength of this team in terms of taking whatever they can and translating that into huge leaps and bounds in terms of getting that lead bigger. And now it's a 7,000 gold difference.
Yeah, that's pretty significant. But at this point in the game where most of the players are nearing full items, you have to start looking at that gold and you're like, how much value does it actually have? The real value is going to come from these neutral objectives like the Elder Dragon and the Baron. And as long as Lyon can stall out so they don't lose that much more, the next respawning of these big objectives is where things are really going to get tense. I feel like the next Baron spawn is going to be where the game is decided, because WE, they're going to struggle to really push onto these towers. They have a lot of poke from the Corki, but there's so much pick threat from the Syndra. The possibility of a flank from Audi or Jaral is always there. So Lyon, they're a threat. They're just waiting to pounce at overextended WE.
A lot of pressure here on White Lotus and Seiya both to find the damage against this WE frontline. The last fight, the fight at Baron, they weren't able to bring them down in time. And it allowed WE to turn things around and find that big momentum shift that we were just talking about. WE also, a lot of pressure on these guys. Remember, these are the hometown favorites. This is the team that all the fans out there are expecting these guys to run away with this, stop this game, win against these guys. And right now, they're looking like they're in a better and better spot as time ticks on to find that win. But they've still got to close it out. White Lotus taking a lot of damage from that single crit out of GA, returning a little bit of pain of his own, finding another living artillery there on the back end of that skirmish. Cask thrown up into the base gate. WE playing this one very slowly, very safely. You talked about how Lyon didn't want to commit to any sort of a fight in their base against a Elder Drake Baroned up team, didn't want to take any excessive risks. WE not really wanting to do the same either in terms of structuring this push. Rupture not finding its way onto White Lotus there. 957 going to be losing about half his HP. Syndra ulti used on Condi and barely even going to take off a quarter of his health. Not a lot of gain for a pretty large cooldown to have down. Mystic and GA are both feeling a lot safer.
Now look at the number of people that have just gone back from the side of Lyon Gaming. Only White Lotus here, and he's afraid of getting engaged upon by Condi. So W using this as an opportunity, along with the pushing wave in top and in mid. Their eyes are on this tier 3 tower in the bottom lane as they continue their push.
Palace been used by Ben there to speed the team up a little bit. Saya popping the ghosts. Lyon not finding their engage.
WE know that there's a big minion wave top, and they'll guarantee themselves that tower if they just keep the pressure up bot. They're now utilizing all 3 waves to just slowly siege into Lyon, but look.
White Lotus gonna be knocked up. Silence knocked around a little bit. The CC continuing to come out. Mystic now in the retreat. Giral coming in from the side. Lyon will chase WE back. 957, the one who loses most of the HP there. But Lyon does not want to chase it out any further. Genthix nearly taken down, also has to retreat back into the base, and the inhibitor turret will fall. The long siege from WE paying off now as Giral finds his way in onto Mystic, forcing out the ulti from the Xayah immediately. 957 still on the front line. Cask thrown out to try to disengage this one. They continue to look for more. White Lotus again, got to be so careful. Low on health, low on mana. Not really any way to stop this take, and the second inhibitor will fall.
So, WE finally take that second inhibitor down from Lyon. Their defense is not strong enough to keep the LPL representatives out of their base. They also lose the tier 2 top lane tower. And now the Baron is respawning. The objectives for WE are so clear. They know exactly where to move around the map. And Lyon, they're struggling to find the fights themselves. Because Oddie cannot get a successful flank off, it is very hard for them to really kick these fights off in their favor. Remember, a lot of the fights they were winning, again, was because WE were the ones starting things off, and then Lyon could respond. But now everything is in WE's core. They're the ones controlling the side lanes. They're the ones with control over the vision, and they're the ones looking to take control over the Baron.
And you know, Bettius, we talked about how WE is the kind of team who plays safe, win behind. They're the kind of team that waits for their opponents to make a mistake, and now Lyon may have made that mistake coming out this far. WE definitely not behind at this point in time, though. When they did feel like they were behind earlier, they waited for Lyon to go for that Baron, and then they punished exactly what you would want to see out of a team that likes to play methodically like this. Now Baron and Elder going to be an issue again very soon. Elder not live yet, but Baron is on the table. Lyon cannot afford to just give these away.
Now remember, the mid lane inhibitor has respawned. Lyon, notice the Baron started. They have TP up, they're gonna force the fight.
Baron below half HP, but now it's gonna be GA diving into the fight with the package there into the back line. Now Lyon's front line trying to tank up the carries on the side of Team WE, but GA's grabbing the rampage, one of the support player. Condi dropping next as Saya tries to kite himself backwards. White Lotus potentially gonna be caught out here. The shutdown from Mystic. As Lyon now losing that Kog'Maw means they have very little to resist the 4-man push of Team WE. Baron or not, the victory march is coming.
White Lotus was CC'd for so much of that fight. He could not output the damage. Saya this lane into the game could not match that of GA. WE play the fight beautifully, and they're going to take game 1 in the World Championship.
The home team makes their statement. It was a little bit rough getting here, but they have managed to close this game out 47 minutes in as the Nexus turrets fall, and WE will claim the first victory of Worlds 2017.
I was not expecting that game to go like that, though, Captain Flowers. I thought that WE would just come in convincing, especially after the start in the early game. Oddie didn't get any successful snowball. Condi had full control. WE was scaling very nicely. Everything was looking good, but Lyon were just winning fight after fight after fight. White Lotus and Seiya did not die until the final team fight. And it just made you realize that the competition this year is looking
It's fierce. It is very fierce. Remember, these are the teams, during the play-in stage, we have a grand total of 12 teams competing for 4 spots in the main group stage at Worlds. That means that your chance to get in there is about 1 in 3. You've really got to step up. If the competition is going to be this intense between these teams, you have got to make sure that you are leaving everything out there on Summoner's Rift. And you honestly cannot fault Lyon Gaming and say, oh, well, they didn't leave everything on the Rift. They weren't really trying that hard. This team put on an immaculate show. They had one hell of a showing up against a team that a lot of people were counting them out against, especially the hometown fans here, considering where Worlds is taking place in China in 2017. That's a wall to have to run into for your very first game, and Lyon played it very well.
And if I was Lyon, I'd feel pretty confident, especially going up against Gambit later on today. Like, they put up a very strong performance, and they did not rely on that oddie early snowball. They were able to rely on their own individual talent, the ability to punish the small mistakes made by WE, and just find those very impressive early game leads. That was a fun game. It's really great way to start off the tournament. Such tense team fighting, but it was WE that came out superior in the end. Once they were able to punish Lyon for that Baron attempt, they just did not let go of control, and they just seemed to be playing the fight so much cleaner than they had previously in the game.
And when the analysts were talking before the game actually started about the players that you want to be watching from these first couple of groups, that game showcased exactly why both White Lotus and Mystic were on that list of players to watch. But now to hear more about our first game of Worlds, let's send it over to the desk.
Thank you very much, Flowers. Of course, I am just stunned by the way that game unfolded. We thought W would find the win. They did find the win in the end, but Lyon showed up in that game.
I mean, it's one of the reasons we said the 2 players to watch on the Rift. You know, one was Mystic, one was White Lotus. White Lotus had a great performance on the Kog'Maw, was almost able to carry them, but came up just a little bit too short.
Yeah, that was an incredible game to start off Worlds. Like, absolutely insane. And we were talking about best of ones and respect. Like, we're seeing that these emerging regions, like the LLN, actually have a whole lot of strength to them. They were able to match up to WE in most areas, except it was kind of the macro play in the decision-making that was the one thing that kind of fell short.
Yeah, and it was interesting, too, look at how WE played the early to mid game, and almost the entire game, it felt like so much focus on these objectives. And as we look at some of these early fights, these early contests for these objectives, you can see WE very eager, it would appear, at least to me, to start trying to force these fights.
I think the big thing, it felt like they were feeling that they had some just advantages. This first one was a little risky that they just brute forced it, basically. You see that Lyon collapse. Condi has to kind of sacrifice in there to keep Mystic alive. And off that first kill, that's nice for Lyon, but they start falling behind in tempo. And then WE brute forces down onto this Rift Herald, and Lyon, instead of resetting after taking the bot turret, actually runs all the way up and contests.
Yeah, and this felt like WE were kind of testing the waters. They're like, all right, we're going to play standard. We're going to get every objective, and sometimes in a really kind of greedy fashion. But the thing that surprised me about Lyon is they went and they contested objectives, like you said, across the map. The first 6 neutral objectives between Rift Herald, Baron, and 4 Dragons, 5 of them were contested with a team fight from Lyon Gaming walking up on WE.
I think that's just the thing, is it felt like Lyon was a little slow to the fights. They were never quite set up, so when they did get a kill or two, it felt like they had a hard time transitioning it into more.
Yeah, because normally it's like, oh, we got a kill, then we can go do an objective. But they got kills as the objectives were being done by WE, so they weren't able to get a lot of advantages. It was kind of a split 2-for-2 in Drakes. The Rift Herald went over to WE, and then the first Baron as well.
And the towers coming in as well felt like it built most of WE's gold lead, despite what Lyon was able to find early on. However, as we enter the mid game, this is where things got crazy. This is where we started to see exactly how strong Lyon was. That is going to be our Acer Predator replay. Let's take a look at how this one unfolds.
Yeah, this was the one where we saw 957 flash forward to try and get an engage, and then it was the TP and the turnaround here. The root landing onto 957 to push him back in, and then it became the kite back here from Team WE. But Lyon, I love watching Seiya here. This is just a huge standout scatter of the week, because White Lotus has no flash, gets exhausted. He's going to be dead to rights here, and a beautiful scatter of the week.
And then this is where things come off the hinges a little bit, because it feels like right then you can go and potentially force that Baron down. What ends up happening is Sia hovers around the mid lane, kind of zoning 2 people away, and then as they're doing that Baron, they realize we don't quite have enough health, we don't quite have enough damage, and it would have been better if he was there throwing damage out and doing the zoning near Baron, and they lost that opportunity for a Baron. And then there was another one later where they had a Maokai ult, and instead of finishing the Baron behind it, they followed up on the Maokai ult for an engage.
And you're talking about the decision making of if he was there, even to provide damage, to take a few extra hits from the Baron, right? These are the things that needed a little more fine-tuning from Lyon, because they had the mechanics in the team fight, they had the front line and knew how to actually play around it, and then it was just those decisions. And it was very impressive, because this is not exactly what we were expecting from Lyon Gaming.
Fine-tuning was not what we expected. We thought, hey, these guys are going to get outclassed mechanically. We thought they're going to get outclassed macro. That was the potential. That was, the setup we thought when we look at the history of how well the LPL has been able to perform. But these guys were incredibly dominant. I think we have to praise Audi as well, because a lot of these team fights, how did he manage to find a way in as a Lee Sin?
Yeah, I mean, that's the hard thing. I mean, he's one of those champions who's very team comp dependent. When you're playing against a Janna, a Gragas, and then a Corki and a
Xayah and a Cho'Gath.
They have so many tools to deny that Lee Sin engage, but he kept finding opportunities, so he deserves a huge tip of the cap to as well.
Yeah, as well as Seiya, because the guy was an insane performance on the Syndra, winning the early game in the lane phase. He was up, got the first blood as well, and that guy has been a huge standout performer for them. We've talked about how Lyon Gaming have 9 regional championships. The only member on the team who has been a part of all 9 is the mid laner Seiya, so he's a big power point for them alongside White Lotus, who both had pretty much deathless games until the end.
But we saw once those team fight wins started to come out for Lyon, WE felt like gave them a lot more respect, started to play the game a lot slower. When they finally did find that winning team fight, when they finally did find that Baron, no more was it the, hey, let's force a fight everywhere. It's the, let's take it slow and steady. Let's see what options we have.
And this is what they needed to do. They needed to wait for the other team to come into them and then kind of counter-engage. It was a lot harder when they're brute forcing, with the Cho'Gath running in. Here, they're able to just focus down the tanks. White Lotus is kind of having to deal with 2 fronts at the same time. GA on the backside had his threat over there, and in the meantime, the rest of WE was following up that ramp, and slowly they just ran out of resources. Eventually, his flash went down, and they were able to collapse onto him, finally get that kill, and then from there, W's going to be able to close out the game. But like you're saying, just a great performance early on out of Lyon Gaming.
Yeah, and you were talking about Lyon Gaming back at MSI being 1 game behind Gigabyte Marines. Looks like that wasn't a bit of a mistake there, because they actually had a lot of great strength.
Yeah, and let's also be clear, Gigabyte Marines aren't in this group right now. They don't have to worry about fighting Gigabyte Marines, but after that performance, we have to wonder, are these going to be the guys that take that 1st or 2nd seed, because they are incredibly close to beating them.
Yeah, I mean, if you're Gambit and you're watching this game saying, I wonder, how things are going to look as we continue to play out this group, you're probably a little nervous, because they looked really, really good here against WE.
Well, I'm nervous for this group in general, because WE did not look incredibly strong versus Lyon. Lyon showed a lot of strength here, but remember, this is Gambit Gaming with a lot of kind of variance to them. Edward has those awkward plays where he's up top making plays. Then you have people like Kira and PvP Stayhost from the Albus Nox Luna lineup that went the furthest that any emerging region had ever gone before.
Yeah, and we look at this as well. I think the big thing is that WE are still able to find the win. At the end, it does feel like their play was cleaned up, like they were a little bit more comfortable, but I mean, now that they've kind of exposed some of these weaknesses, what do they have to do to tune up coming into the next game?
I think I wouldn't really call it disrespect of them. It was kind of they were testing the waters in the least aggressive way possible. We're like, let's do an objective and see what the enemy team will do to us. Oh, they're going to fight us every single time. Okay, now that we know that, let's stop just forcing every objective and make sure we set up properly. It wasn't really disrespectful, but it was, like I said, testing the waters. Lyon clearly able to keep up with them in that regard, and it was just that macro decision-making that once WE kind of figured that part out, that was able to give them the big advantage. And that's something that they'll have over the course of this group stage, most likely.
Yeah, it makes me really excited for the rematch tomorrow between these 2 teams. What is that going to look like? Is it more of the same, or are WE going to adapt and change it up a little bit?
Or Lyon going to adapt, right? The constant question, how are these best of ones going to affect moving forward? And do you think that Gambit now, sitting on deck, waiting to play these teams, do you think they come in with a bigger advantage just seeing what these teams have brought to the table?
There's some things that you can definitely take away from it, like, hey, that Kog'Maw was terrifying. He got really fed. Same with Sia's Syndra. Those are 2 things that if I was going to say, I probably wouldn't want to get them again. The Lee Sin looked like a little bit of a non-factor. Condi did a really good job tracking him in the early game and getting a big advantage there. So I think those are some of the things that you're potentially looking at for Gambit if you're going up against Lyon and what you want to take away from them.
Interesting to see, too, exactly how this has gone through, exactly what these teams have brought. At the end of the day, though, still the win for WE. And looking forward, so many more games ahead of us, so many more unknowns. How many more of these smaller regions are going to contest? Well, as things kick off in Wuhan, make sure you take to Twitter with your World's Big Plays. Tweet to @LO Esports with the hashtag Worlds2017, and we will share your plays all month long. Now, we're heading to a commercial break, but when we return, North America's Cloud9 faces off against CB Law's Team 1 Esports. Don't go anywhere. We'll be right back.
Finds himself rooted up, locked down. And first blood of Worlds 2017 goes to Lyon Gaming. Lyon in retreat. They're going to lose one as White Lotus now exhausted. But a massive scat of the week will find multiple targets. Now WE might find themselves caught between a rock and a hard place. Giral on the front line. Is Condi going to be potentially taken down next? Mystic trying to get himself away, but he's going to be picked off. It's 3-0 for Lyon Gaming. 957 now going to be stunned up. First and down before he can do a whole lot of anything. Lion's front line trying to tank up the carries on the side of Team WE, but GA's grabbing the rampage. One of the support player. Condi dropping next as Seiya tries to kite himself backwards. White Lotus potentially going to be caught out here. The shutdown from Mystic. WE will claim the first victory of Worlds 2017.
Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. I'm standing here with the 80K for Team WE, Mystic. Mystic, congratulations on the win here. You guys just played in front of your home crowd, and it was a fantastic match to watch. Was it good to win in front of your home crowd?
네, 오늘 우승을 축하드립니다. 지금 오늘 보시면 이제 홈그라운드에서 경기를 진행하게 됐는데요. 이 열성적인 홈그라운드 팬 앞에서 경기를 우승하게 돼서 더 기쁘신가요? 그 소감이 어떠신지 말씀 부탁드립니다.
일단 응원해 주시는 팬분들이 있어서 기분 좋고 본판 좀 쉽게 이기지 못했지만 지는 것보다 낫다고 생각해요.
Okay, I'm really happy that there are a lot of fans who are cheering for me, and actually this was not an easy game, but it's still better than losing.
Well, that's great to hear. And speaking of that not being an easy game, for the Western audience, Team WE is very well known as being a late game team, the Elder Dragon team, and you guys did go to past 45 minutes. Was that the game plan all along, to go to the late game, or did you guys think that you'd finish the game much quicker than you actually did?
네, 지금 서구에서 지금 WE 같은 경우는 레이 게임을 하는 걸로 굉장히 유명한데요. 그리고 장로를 가져오는 걸로 유명합니다. 그래서 저희가 지금 오늘 경기도 거의 45분 가까이 진행을 했는데 처음부터 이렇게 길게 하려고 계획을 했던 건가요? 아니면은 사실 계획했던 것보다 조금 더 빨리 끝난 건가요?
이렇게 보통 처음에 길게 계획하진 않는데 이 게임이 저희 마음대로 잘 안 풀리니까 좀 길어졌던 것 같아요.
Well, actually, we didn't really plan for like having a long game for late gaming, but well, it didn't really go as we planned in the earlier phase. So yeah, that was why it got elongated.
But regardless, you guys were still able to pick up the victory. And there was one stage during the game where you flashed into the entire opposition and put up a great show there. What was going through your mind when you made that crazy play?
네, 하지만 여전히 승리를 하셨으니까 괜찮고요. 그리고 중간에 경기에서 한번 이제 플래시에서 들어가서 정말 적진에 뛰어들어가서 대단한 쇼를 보여주셨는데요. 그때 어떤 생각을 하고 계셨습니까?
아니 그게 원래 제가 R을 누르려고 했는데 그 밑에 F를 눌러가지고 자살하게 되었어요.
Oh, well, actually, I was intending to press R, but by mistake, I pressed FO below it, so that's why I killed myself.
That's a little bit unfortunate there. And finally, you know, your last game today is going to be up against Gambit Gaming, who have brought back some really well-known players. Are you very confident going into this next match?
네, 정말 안타깝네요. 그리고 이제 갬빗 게이밍과 또 경기를 치르게 돼 있는데요. 이 팀에는 굉장히 유명한 선수들이 많이 있습니다. 이 다음 경기에 대해서는 뭐 편안하신가요?
일단 첫 판에 해본 결과 저희가 아직 긴장을 너무 안 될 것 같고 좀 더 집중해서 저희 경기력을 좀 더 끌어올려야 이길 수 있을 것 같아요.
Okay, based on today's result, I believe we should never let our guard down and we must focus on the game so that we can win.
Well, that's great to hear. Good luck on your next match. Congratulations on the victory. We're going to send it back to you guys.
Thank you very much, Fish. I think it's good to hear that they're a little more guarded now. Not, you know, I don't want to say they shouldn't be confident, but definitely giving their opponents more respect. Well, turrets are now loaded up and ready for our second match. It's Cloud9 versus Team 1 Esport. And of course, first up, playing on the blue side, it is Cloud9 in the top lane. It's going to be Impact. Another player I'm excited to see. And we look at the rest of their roster. Of course, Jungle's Contracts, mid lane Jensen, bot lane Sneaky, their Sports Smoothie, and their coach Reaper.
And of course, that means that facing them on the red side, it's going to be 1 Esports from Brazil. We're going to see top lane is going to be Vert. Jungle will be Forlan. Mid, they'll be starting Brewster. They do have 2 mid laners. Bot will be Absolute. Support will be Redbert. And coach will be Neki.
And it's interesting when we look at these two teams, despite coming in as number 3rd seed, Cloud9, they start the leg of this tournament. They got a little bit of confidence, I think, to say the least. They look pretty sure of themselves.
Confidence or confusion? There was a fair amount of Twitter banter. Jensen was saying he doesn't know who he's playing coming into the tournament after the group draw result. He was confused, so it was a little disrespect, a little bit of fun. It's hard exactly to say.
Exactly, but at the same time, if that's serious, then that's a big red flag.
Oh, yeah.
We just saw what happened in that last game where WE almost got taken down by Lyon. So Cloud9, they got to be a bit respectful of their opponents here because they could get taken off guard and be a
And honestly, in contrast, Team 1, they're used to getting disrespected. These guys have been the perpetual underdogs in the CB Law, but you cannot deny the results that these guys have put up.
Yeah, this is the thing, is this is an opportunity for them to step up because a lot of Brazilian fans are like, this isn't Pain, this isn't Red Canids or, you know, even INTZ for them. So 1 came in, a single split. They don't have that large of a fan base. This is an opportunity for them to kaboom in the tournament and get themselves a lot of fans, get themselves a little bit of momentum back home.
Yeah, and of course, it's the same thing. You might be able to shut up C9 a little bit too. Have been slightly disrespecting their opponents. It's not just that Jensen tweet. There's Impact had a tweet. There was an interview by Sneaky. The whole team a little bit had this little air of arrogance in a sense. And while you don't want to read too far into it, I'm sure some of it's having fun. It did have a different vibe to it than a lot of other teams coming into this tournament.
Yeah, and that's the thing is, a North American team, you know, sometimes they get a little confident and they get smacked down in Worlds. It's been a very common thing that's happened, but Cloud9 actually have some of the best North American results, making quarterfinals very frequently, only missing out only a few times, actually having the best international performance at Worlds for NA.
Hey, and I think if there's anything we've learned for that game one, it pays not to underestimate your opponent. Well, that's going to do it for us. Let's send it over to Captain Flowers to get us into game two.
Thank you, Dracos. I'm still Clayton Captain Flowers Reigns, and I am still joined by Andrew Vedius Day here for the second game of Worlds 2017. Now, game number one was a lot closer than a lot of people expected it to be, and it was a ton of fun to watch. And now we'll have to see if game number two is going to be just as entertaining.
I'm expecting it to be just as entertaining because coming into the play-ins, there were two groups where I thought the top seed could be upset. The first one is Group D, where it felt like how strong is Hong Kong attitude compared to some of the other regions like Turkey and Japan. And the other one is Group B, because Cloud9, for sure, they're definitely looking like the favorites. It's difficult to challenge that. But you look at some of the competition that's coming in, Direwolves looking extremely strong domestically. They've got a lot of young players. They seem to be adapting a lot to the current meta and playing extremely well, whereas Team 1, they seem to have their own unique meta that took their region by storm. They're all about playing the 1-3-1, the split push, and I'm fascinated to see how that stacks up against Cloud9 and how well Cloud9 have prepared coming into this play, and given the air of confidence they seem to demonstrate on social media.
All right, getting into picks and bans here for the second game of the day. Cloud9 on the blue side. Team 1, they're on the red. Bans coming out from Cloud9, Tristana and Sejuani to start things off, as Elise is banned out by Team 1.
Now, one of the picks viewers at home need to be aware of is Olaf for Forlan. This is one of his most successful junglers, 8-1 during the regular season, and it was banned away almost all the time during playoffs away from the jungler. Very big comfort pick for him. He seems to have a lot of success on it. And we're going to see if Cloud9 respects it or if they think they have an answer.
It's like the Rift Rivals meme that I was making before game number one that we almost got cut off and I couldn't finish. But just in case there wasn't enough conversation about that already, do you respect that pick that isn't really a thing in your home region, but you want to disable it from this team that might be able to do some amazing things with it? And Cloud9 says, no, we're not worried about that. We're just going to play to the game that we planned on. Trist, Sejuani, Kalista, Syndra, Thresh, and Elise all banned away, as Xayah is first picked by C9.
Now, one are more than happy to pick themselves the Cogmore, but they're going to go for a blind pick powerful mid laner to get Bruiser on just a little bit more control, but this is giving away a very powerful bottom lane to the opposition. In a place like Europe, and I feel like in North America, getting the Xayah Rakan bot lane is like a dream come true, especially if you can round things out with a Gragas as well. That's like heaven for the meta composition, because you're guaranteed a strong, powerful, heavy engage, winnable, getting even kill potential down the bottom lane, and you have this well-rounded jungler who offers engage, who offers peel, everything you could possibly want.
How will Team 1 respond to this? I kind of want to bring up a quote from Talkers, another one of the big names in the CB LoL, talking about Team 1. And this is kind of some of the frustrations that some of the other teams have had playing against them in that unorthodox forging their own meta style that you were talking about, Vedius, where he said, these guys sometimes seem like they're amateurs who don't know exactly where they are and what they're getting themselves into. They like to scream and talk trash and taunt, and they pick champions that nobody thinks should work, and then they win. And that's what the competition says about this team, so they're not worried about what Cloud9's doing. They're just saying, oh, you want Xayah Rakan? All right, we're going to play our game. And so far, that seems to be the goal here for Team 1. They're going to go ahead and grab the Morgana as well, as Cloud9 gets the Galio for themselves, and we head into the second part of the ban.
Wow, now this is very unconventional. From what I am used to, I would never expect a Cogmore Morgana to go up against the Xayah Rakan. Now, I understand that Mor can be a pretty effective pick. The Black Shield mitigates both the taunt and the knocker, and with the recent nerf to the speed of the W of Rakan, now scaling with movement speeds are much less compared to before. It's arguably easier to predict, but is it so much? Like, that's still a quick initiation, you know? You got to be pretty quick on the trigger finger when it comes to that black shield. So we'll see how well Team 1 can play in terms of their 2 versus 2, because C9's bottom lane, they had a great performance in the gauntlet, and I'm looking at them to be one of the big carries coming into this game.
Really like the Orianna band coming out from Team 1. That is one of the comfort picks for Jensen, something that we've seen him carry countless numbers of games on in the NALCS before. He will not be allowed to do that this time around. Jarvan also going to be banned out by 1. Cloud9 takes Trundle off the table, and they've got one more ban to throw out before Team 1 gets their next pick. Where did they decide to focus this one? How exactly do they want to deal with it? Looks like Mundo.
Now, that is a big respect ban over to Vert. During their final, Vert brought out the Mundo, I believe, twice during that series, and it was pretty annoying to deal with. Very split push heavy, very much drawing a lot of attention. People thought that with Bramble Vest it would be a big answer. Well, when Vert plays it, it doesn't seem to be. So definitely showing an element of respect towards the Brazilian representatives.
And here we go, Vedius, another carry jungler going to be locked in here. We got to see the Lee Sin in game number 1 coming out from Lyon Gaming. Now Team 1 Esports picking up the Nidalee for themselves, going up against Cloud9.
Now, this is a risky composition, Flowers.
Yes,
they
it
have
is.
no real front line for the
They
side
have no
one.
any kind of front line, real or imaginary. None
but
of these
you know
guys are
what- Do you
tanks.
know what they do have, Flowers? Double Unsensor. If you guys have checked out my recent picks to watch, one of the things I covered in there was the Nidalee, which has been bringing out more of the supportive style playstyle. Contracts himself brought it out during playoffs or the gauntlet, one of the two, but he's definitely familiar with the build. And when you have double AD carry, who wouldn't want that second answered sensor coming out to give you that strong mid-game spike?
Cloud9 going to grab their own jungler in that Rek'Sai for contracts, and now we might get to see that LeBlanc go through for these guys, and it looks like they will lock that one in for Jensen.
Ooh, exciting, exciting. And I love this from Team 1. Remember that the Galio was locked in at the end of the first rotation, yet one said, okay, you know what? We think that that's still more likely going to be a top laner, so we're just going to keep banning away mids, try and force Jensen off of his comfort powerful mid laners, but he's still able to get one. You mentioned Rift Rivals earlier. He had an extremely impressive performance on the LeBlanc Dan, and he's continued to demonstrate that throughout the regular season of North America.
Not surprised to see Team 1 lock in the Gnar as their final pick here. They like to split push. You already said it. The top lane is how they like to play their games, and putting Vert on a champion that's capable of doing that is all in the game plan.
So you can already see the 1-3-1 coming out from 1. Very much the style that they have had so much success with within their region. You send Lucian off onto one side lane, Gnar off to the other. You get yourself a healthy man and magic resistance to deal with the LeBlanc. And now you're just trying to divide this C9 composition up that is pretty strong at team fighting, but also has this great early game potential with both the LeBlanc and the Rek'Sai. Rek'Sai has been rising in popularity recently, and I'm excited to see him in the hands of Contracts, who to me comes across as this jungler who can and likes to make early game plays, especially set up Jensen for success when he's on these assassin style mids.
Yeah, there's so many things up in the air now that we're wondering who's going to step up for Cloud9. Like, this team was a team that throughout the course of the regular summer split, Jensen was the one who had to do a lot of the heavy lifting. And then we got to see Sneaky really show up during the gauntlet, especially against CLG. Had some amazing hero plays there. But Impact's also another guy that I want to keep my eye on this game, Vedius. Because if you're going up against a team who wins through split pushing, who wins through getting the top laner ahead and having that kind of pressure, well, your top laner needs to be able to deal with that.
Exactly that, and we had a lot of chats, Captain Flowers, about Impact's performance, how it was fairly mixed during the regular season. It seems to get better throughout the second half of the split, and then coming into playoffs and the gauntlet, he seemed to really come into his own. He really did seem to have, ironically, a significant impact on the performance of Cloud9.
And we'll have to see if he can keep that impact up as they go up against Team 1 Esports, Cloud9's first game here in Worlds 2017. And like the analysts were showcasing on the desk, Cloud9 doesn't seem too intimidated by the prospect of their opponents here during the play-in stage. They seem to be pretty confident in their ability to win on this one. I mean, Jensen's quote about, "I still don't know who I'm playing against," after watching the play-in draws.
What surprise! Oh, you're playing against Team 1. There you go.
Looks like you're playing up against Team 1, specifically Brewster here on the Lucian there in the mid lane. Jensen's LeBlanc, always a lot of fun to see. maybe he can go off, carry this game, do some amazing plays of his own, but he will have to go through Brewster to do it.
So let's talk a little bit about some of the matchups that we're going to have, because from a player perspective, we've got a lot of exciting players. We've also got a lot of exciting champions showing up in this first game. Like the Nidalee coming out from Fallout. This guy, young player from CBLOL, but a big playmaker, very cocky. What you will see from him is that he likes to yell at his opponents.
Just like we heard from Talkers.
Yeah.
They yell and they scream and they taunt.
Exactly, but this guy specifically, when you watch his player cams in the finals, every time his team gets a kill, he's up, he's bumping around, he's like, yeah, yeah, do you see that play, do you see that play? This guy has a lot of confidence, and he rides a lot on tempo and advantage and pressure. And Nidalee is a great champion for being able to get that, especially against tanky junglers, because you run into the enemy jungle, you steal away all their camps, and the tanky jungler cannot trade against the early game skirmishing that a Nidalee can provide. But a Rek'Sai, not quite your conventional early game tank, can really match some of the early skirmishing power that Nidalee is looking to provide.
Along with what we're expecting to see based on champions, I also want to touch a little bit on summoner spells, because we do have some mismatches this game. Teleport from Jensen's LeBlanc there in the mid lane. Sneaky and Smoothie getting very aggressive at level 1. Smoothie going in there with the grand entrance, but you've got Teleport compared to the Ignite on the LeBlanc compared to the Lucian there in mid lane. And bottom lane, Smoothie's packing Ignite on this Rakan, but over on the other side, it's Barrier for Absolute. The heal is on Redbird.
And this was something we were talking a little bit about in Game 1, the rush of Armed Sensor. The point of this build, down in the bottom lane, be going for the
Relic Shield.
The Relic Shield, the name I always forget, basically means that you can just invest more gold into your support. Remember, Janna last game had like an 800 gold lead on the enemy support.
Well, silly.
It's going to be even more significant when you're having all this investment. And the barrier heal is just to give even more peel for the Cogmore. But the thing is about this whole composition is, yes, you have the 1-3-1 coming up. You also have this amazing siege potential, because assuming that the Nidalee does go for the Unholy Grail plus Unsensor build, her E heal that was nerfed on, that was slightly buffed on this patch, plus the attack speed steroid that it gives to your AD carry, you just melt towers. You melt them so quickly, and it just makes your your tower sieging that much stronger.
The one thing you also got to worry about is these early ganks that might be getting set up here. Contracts very patiently waiting. Jensen going in, not going to find success with the chain there. Flash into the knockup. Contracts looking to make this one happen. Jensen with a flash of his own, but Cloud9, 2 summoners down, and they won't get the kill. Granted, they do get the flash.
Seems a little over-eager there from Jensen. He misses the charm. He's able to proc the passive.